Hello, Matt, and welcome to our OMS artist interview. Thank you so much for being our guest artist today. How are you?
Thanks, Nina.
We have some typical questions that we like to go over so that we could learn more about our visiting artists. And they're pretty basic. So I'll just start off with where are you from?
I grew up in Iowa, and I went to school in Illinois, where I met my wife, Karen Majewski. And I've lived in Minnesota and in North Carolina, and now I'm here in Hamtramck, Michigan.
That's a lot of moving around. What was it that had you moving so much?
Oh, just wanderlust.
Great. Do you have a favorite place?
I like Hamtramck a lot.
Fantastic. Yeah, me too. All right. So now we want to talk about what field or media you typically work in. And, you can talk about any or all of them.
What media do I typically work in is I'm a cartoonist and a graphic designer.
Okay.
So,
So is it mainly hand drawing then, or a combination
yes.
of? Great. And then so your subject matter.
Well, back when I was about 25 years old in 1980, I started doing mini comics, and that's been my preferred medium for all these years.
That's awesome. Was there something that brought you to that area of concentration to work on mini comics?
Well, when I was 25 years old, I started doing little stick figure adventures of the amazing cynical man, America's laid off superhero.
That's awesome. And then it just grew from there.
It just grew from there.
Okay. So I was curious about, those are great, about the stick figure. So what was it that drew you to that, literally, or you drew the stick figures? And obviously the faces are fairly expressive, but you stuck with the stick figure and didn't develop the body for just the faces. How did that come to be for you?
I started drawing comics when I was 13 years old, and I didn't think I was a very good artist, so I just drew stick figure. And I was reading Marvel comics back then, so I was drawing stick figure superhero comics.
That's fantastic. I have oftentimes when I tell people that I'm an artist or an art teacher, they say, oh, I can't even draw a stick figure. And I just think that's funny that your comics are, in a sense, based on the stick figure structure. So that's right. That's pretty fun. The other question that I've been wondering about is, do you have a stick figure, Matt? That's you.
A stick figure version of myself?
Yeah.
Yes, of course. And my stick figure version of me.
That's fantastic. I wondered if the hat was going to come into play, and there it is. And just the gesture that you're able to bring to this character, which is obviously you. It's incredible that it's just a stick figure and there's just so much gesture to it. I just love it. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Some other questions we had was, what inspires your art? I know you touched a little bit on starting to draw the stick figures and the superheroes. Anything more you can say about that as far as your inspiration?
I watched a lot of TV as a kid, so I was always visually oriented. I always was putting things together visually. So just walking around, going down the street, you can notice how the street disappears.
Yes.
And you can stand out on your porch in Hamtramck and look through everybody else's porch as it goes off into the distance. And you admire how the trees offset the houses like that, and the cars are lined up just perfectly. So it's you can see like compositions in nature all the time. And by imitating that in your drawing, then you're drawing inspiration from nature and from the world around you.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. Your description of looking down the street, especially in Hamtramck. For those that don't know, the houses are basically all lined up. So the porches would be lined up, the cars would all be parked on the street and lined up. So we're looking at this perspective, like you said, it fades away at the end of the street, but it's so geometric, and the architecture is placed in such a way that it all aligns. And then
Yeah.
for the other side of it, when we look to nature, we see more organic compositions, like you said, but you can take the two into your own art. And sometimes we don't see the backstory of someone's process when we're just looking at the finished product, but there is a lot that goes into it, as artists, how we see the world, how we take it in, and then how we put it back out onto paper, onto our compositions. So yeah, that's great. Was there anything else that you wanted to share with us?
What do I want to share with you? When I start drawing my comics, I get out my legal pad and start scribbling ideas.
So no fancy sketchbook, just a legal pad with some dates, and you definitely have some ideas put down before you just go to the paper.
I do have a fancy sketchbook, but this isn't one of them.
Okay, so this is more sort of your notes, the ideas, the note taking for the ideas.
A little bit of thumbnails going on. You just grid off the page into like 4 rows of 4 panels, like 16 panels. And you start in the upper left corner and you just start making up the story as you go along. Not really bothering to know where it's going or how it's going to end, just looking for relationships between characters. And this day, I started out, I was doing some other sketches for other stuff, and I drew Cynical Man in his work clothes at the board of superheroes. And there's a boardroom table, and the boss says, Loan Shark is out sick, so we got Captain Phil in. And there's a joke about Captain Phil in coming along.
I love the play on words too.
Then I thought, why is Captain Phil in there? Because Loan Shark is sick and he's out with COVID-19. And the joke is Cynical Man has to go stake out Loan Shark, and they follow him and Captain Phil follow him around, and they find out he's been home listening to Aqualung by Jethro Tull. And Cynical Man says, well, Chief, Loan Shark obviously has COVID-19. He's lost his taste. Horrors, haha, that's the end. How can I fill that out to an 8-page mini comic? So you just start scribbling more ideas and getting jokes from other people. And after a while, you think you have enough to fill an 8-page issue. There's the cover, there's a little thumbnail about where all the panels are going. I decided I needed to put in 2 panels up on this page. So if I got rid of these 2 panels, I can move everything over. All my panels are the same size. So it's like editing film.
It's great to see the process in that way. Yeah.
Once I know how the story is going to end, I get out the sheets of marker paper underdrawing. There's like translucent paper that I scribble out the story on. So the first panel becomes a more rendered boardroom with the other characters here. Captain Fill-In's changed, and there's Cynical Man. And I know how big the word balloons are going to be and where the panel borders are going to be. Then once I've scribbled out the artwork, I put the translucent marker paper on a light table and trace it onto Bristol board and then go over it in ink. So this is the finished art, where I've gone ahead and put in all the details here. There's stuff on the whiteboard. There's a sign in the background. Everybody's got their finished faces and everything. And I scan it on the computer. I lay it out and print up the pages. I print them up front and back on 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper. And then I cut the stack in half and collate them, fold them into a little book like so. And then I can put my saddle stapler right there. And it makes a little 8-page book.
That is fantastic. From idea generating all the way to a finished piece. Thank you so much. So these are available for sale?
These are available online at www.cynicalman.com.
Fantastic.
So you can keep this up for as long as you can. That's how we do it.
That's a fancy stapler. Saddle stapler, you call it?
Saddle stapler.
We might need to get one of those for our classroom.
Have a couple more minutes. Do you
Yeah,
have a little more time? Because I want to do you a sketch.
that'd be great.
Right, so what I like to do is make little trading card size pieces of Bristol board. And I always start with a frame.
We actually just started doing trading cards.
And if you're drawing with a webcam in front of your nose, sometimes the circles get mushed out of shape because you're not looking at it straight. So this is stick figure Spider-Man. He's swinging on a web and he's shooting his web out. We're going to switch to a smaller pen like this one. It's the Todd McFarlane version of the webs. Instead of going spwee, it goes split. He's going to have webbing on his head. We think Spider-Man was designed by Steve Ditko. And he was probably kicking himself the whole time for trying to put webs all over his costume.
Yes, because that was before digital design, wasn't it?
Yeah, he had to draw all those by hand. His webs always bend in towards his head. On the ground, there's a couple onlookers looking up. One's a boy and one's a girl. And then there's a background. Some skyscrapers because he's swinging around New York City. And Spider-Man is red, except for his blue parts, which don't have to draw as a stick figure. Parts you leave out, they're implied. We're not going to leave out this part of the web because that's what he's hanging on to. Windows back here on the skyscrapers to show their buildings. That guy's got a green hat. It's bright green because it's a sunny day. Girl has blue hair. She's like Marge Simpson, I guess.
She might be related or just a fan.
Background, the buildings there are yellow because they're out in the sun. Spider-Man's always out in the middle of the day. He's not like Batman creeping around at night. He's swinging around in the middle of a day. Now there's some blue shadows to beef up his webs and to just put a little shadow along the top edge of his eyes there and a little shadow to make him dark. And then because skyscrapers are yellow, I'm going to put some purple next to them. That way they'll pop up off the page. And then there's some ground. It's coming out of the sky, so here's some impact lines. Whoops. This makes it more exciting. And then I sign it like so. That says Matt 21, and it gets Cynical Man seal of grudging approval.
What is the seal?
It says the amazing Cynical Man seal of grudging approval. And Cynical Man's face is there saying, could be worse. Then we put the date stamp on it. That's how we do that.
That is amazing. And the way that you're just using line to accomplish all of these things. So we see such expression and the Spider-Man character, the webbing is detailed, the buildings are popping out with that slightest bit of shading that you did with the purple, and then just the dots indicating the window, the simple expressive lines note that we know that those are people looking up in awe in a sense, or surprise. And then those action or motion lines, those are great. I love the special signatures too, how you sign it matte and then you have your stamp of approval and then your date stamp, and just the simplest of materials as we can see right here. So what is the marker on the far left side that is used as a purple?
I hope it's purple.
Is that a water-based marker similar to the Crayola? Or is that more like a highlighter?
No, it's more like a highlighter. If you use the water-based markers, if you go over them with another color like this, they'll smear. But I can go over those blue and yellow because they're highlighters and they don't smear much.
Oh, that's a fantastic tip.
But they don't make bright red highlighters, and that's always stumbling for me. So I try and put this down last or first if I'm going over it with a shading color. You put blue over it and it kind of blends into it.
Yeah, as an artist, it's good to know your materials and what they're capable of and what they're not capable of, isn't it?
That's right.
You did reference that when you did your tracing on the tracing table onto the Bristol board that you used ink. When you said ink, what type of ink was that you were referring to?
So these were inked with India ink and rapidographs.
Rapidograph, is that a type of marker?
It's a technical pen. So the finished art, which I turned into that, is inked with India ink and technical pens. The brand name is Rapidograph, and they become, that's what people mostly call every technical pen. But they're very fine. There's a little reservoir in here that you can take this off and fill it with the eyedropper here.
So how do those tips hold up? Are they a little bit more durable than that ultra fine Sharpie tip? Because we've been having a little bit of a hard time with maintaining those. These
will last 20 or 30 years. The biggest problem is keeping them flowing. Because it's India ink, if you don't use them once a month or so, they'll dry up. And then you have to take them apart and soak them in ammonia and then put them back together. Then they'll work fine for another while. The big dark areas were filled in with a speedball pen. And these will last longer than a Sharpie point, but not as long as a rapidograph.
And the speedball, you dip into the ink?
You can dip it in there or take the eyedropper out and carefully put it into that little reservoir there.
So you load the reservoir
with the... Don't do it over your original art, but then you can...
Right. We talk a lot about that too. Like, don't glue over your original art, glue off to the side, you know, definitely.
These were invented for doing hand lettered posters. And now, of course, we all do that on computers, but artists can still use them to do lettering like that.
Which is what you do too. You don't bring that into the computer and then do it on the computer, right? It's all hand done.
Yep. All right. So back when you were asking me about where I get my inspiration, and I was talking about looking at nature and the trees and the houses, there's an example of my sketchbook. This was a drawing of a stop sign in Zussman Park in front of City Hall.
Oh, where we both share the billboard with your work and my work on either side.
Yeah.
Good. Now, what is this done in? Is this the rapidograph or is this the Sharpie?
It was a jet pen. I don't like to carry my rapidographs around. So it was a very fine Japanese-made ballpoint.
So that's your on-the-go tool.
Yeah, and these will run out of ink after a while, but they're cheap to replace. So when I got the sketchbook with me, I'll start off gridding it off again, almost making it into comics panels. And then instead of drawing comics, I'll sit and draw what I'm looking at. Here I was sitting in California Burgers. And so there's a couple people at the counter ordering their burgers. And this, I was in a Zoom call with a bunch of other cartoonists, and I just picked one and I drew his face.
Oh, that's fun.
Here I went to the Hamtramck Festival. And I was sitting under one of these big tents, enjoying the fine weather and drawing what was across the street. Oh, and there's the house across the street from my house. I was sitting on my balcony, and a bird came and landed on the very apex of that gable and sat there as if he was posing for a picture. So I drew him.
I love this. It's similar to how someone might go around with their camera and just take interesting shots, but you have it all logged in drawing form in your sketchbook.
And here I got out, this was another restaurant table. There's a napkin dispenser and a water bottle and a cup. And this was a Yemeni American News headline. Must not have been Yemeni because that's like Bengali script. Well, it was some kind of foreign language, and I tried to imitate the letters. I really liked it.
Beautiful, yeah.
So these were drawn with the jet pen. Don't show up as well on video camera, but these were all drawn with a Sharpie, like so, which is much darker and show up better on the Zoom call. All right, so that's how we do it.
Good. And so I imagine you must have shelves of sketchbooks.
Yes. I got them going back to 1975.
And do you often revisit them for inspiration or just, to reminisce?
Only the recent ones. Maybe this one in last year's sketchbook or the year before that. I'll look at, but the other stuff is like deservedly buried, and I might be a little embarrassed looking at them. But it would be good to get them out and go through them again.
Yeah, it's always good to be reflective of our work. Well, thank you so much for being our actual first visiting artist. It was so great to learn about you, your process, and actually see the process, in a live format, even though this is a video, and the finished products, and they're all available.
See more at www.cynicalman.com.
Thank you, artist Matt Feazell.
Thanks for the interview, Nina.
Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.